you noticed more and more restaurants are trying to reduce plastics like straws and utensils? Well, they might actually be onto something. And as one study reveals, it's about more than just saving the environment. The study, done by Nature Medicine, discovered that our brain contains 30 times more tiny shards of plastic than our kidneys or liver. Essentially, the microplastics we consume are showing up in our brains more than any other area of our body. Researchers found that about 0.5% of our brains are now made up of plastic. That's 50% higher than it was back in 2016. So what does that amount look like? Well, it's about equivalent to the amount of plastic in a plastic spoon. Shocking, isn't it? But does it matter? Well, another study just found that those microplastics could drastically affect our health. A peer-reviewed paper done in Science Advances found that microplastics can move through mice brains and block.
Stand by to be on camera.
Essentially mimicking blood clots that could alter our brain function or even be deadly. Joining us to discuss this is neurologist Dr. Romy Mushtak and Beatrice Barba. She's the founder of Tabor Place and a TikTok influencer known as the Anti-Plastic Lady. Speaking of that, Beatrice, let me come to you. You're committed to creating a safe and healthy environment, especially in regards to this plastic. You know, some people have said that we consume a credit card's worth of plastic every week. How are we consuming so much plastic? Where does it all come from that we're consuming it?
Oh my gosh. So there are definitely some clear studies showing the places that we consume plastic from the most, and they're really surprising. So number one, our biggest source of microplastics is from the food we eat, but it's not from the packaging. It's actually the degree of food processing through which our food is made, right? So when you get a food that's heavily processed, so let's think of chicken nuggets, for example, right? Hot dogs. Those sorts of things have far more microplastics than just regular fruits or vegetables. They actually did a dietary intervention study last year where they looked at reducing the amount of plastic in people's bodies. And they got rid of all the plastic cookware and, plastic packaging and everything in the kitchen. And they found at the end of that study that it had a very small impact on the amount of microplastics that came out of people's bodies. However, when they went back and looked at the data, the people that had the least amount of microplastics in their body were the people that ate the most fresh and unprocessed foods. So it very clearly is the amount of food processing that our food goes through, how many surfaces it touches made out of plastic in that factory that contribute to the overall amount we have in our bodies.
Interesting, because everybody talks about the packaging. They don't talk about the food itself. So
Oh, yeah.
Besides this processed food, what are some of the most dangerous items that we should watch out for?
Oh, definitely bottled water, certainly. Bottled water is a really, really huge source. In fact, it was our single most concentrated source of microplastic ingestion. Another really big source is dust. We spend around 90% of our lives indoors now, and everything that we have that's plastic in our lives, from our carpets and even our own, athletic wear and our blinds, all of that will leach off and get into the dust, which we end up ingesting. But there are some really easy ways to eliminate and reduce those things. Another big source, unfortunately, would be seafood. That has continued to show that over the years it has increased, and that has to do with the amount of microplastic pollution in the ocean, unfortunately, right? But certainly food packaging does play a role in bottled water and soda cans, which also shows to be a really big source of microplastics.
Okay, so for all of us who have been listening to Dr. Mushtak and to you, and we're all very anxious now about consuming this, what are 2 or 3 easy things that we could do to try and de-plastic our lives a bit?
So certainly it's something that every doctor would recommend, which is eating as fresh and unprocessed as you possibly can. It doesn't mean you have to be vegan, but it just means that you are eating a full apple instead of applesauce, as an example, right? You are cooking your chicken at home instead of having a pre-cooked chicken that you are then microwaving, right? Avoiding fast food, right? Because a lot of fast food, not only is it heavily processed before it gets to the restaurant, but a lot of those places cook it in plastic before you get it, right? And so you're literally eating something cooked in plastic. So just by doing what we already know to be healthy, which is eating as fresh and unprocessed as we possibly can, cooking our own food when we possibly can, that will go a really long way to reducing the amount of microplastics in our bodies.